Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to today's broadcast. I always begin by reminding you that your skills, your experiences, and your talents have been given to you for a reason. No one else has that unique combination, and no one else has your voice. You have a message that the world needs to hear. And so, as you listen to today's show, I invite you to a greater vision for your life that resonates beyond what you do, but why you do it. Now, today, I am very excited to speak with my guest, Katie Carter. Katie is a family law attorney in Virginia Beach, Virginia, my home state. And the name of the law firm where she works is called Hofheimer Family Law. There, she both practices law and she's the law firm's director of marketing. Katie is a talented writer, and she has written, created, and revised multiple books that her law firm gives to clients and prospects to help them through the divorce process. She publishes blog posts, she speaks at numerous live events, and also hosts multiple women-only events that are designed to support their clients and women going through a divorce. That's not all. She is also the creator of Your Girlfriend Needs a Divorce brand. It's a brand which I think is simply brilliant and just one of the many reasons that I invited her on my show. So, Katie, welcome. It's so nice to finally meet you in person, and I'm thrilled to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks, Kia. I'm glad to be here.
So, I want to tell the listeners a little bit more about how I met you and why you're here. I've mentioned in previous broadcasts that I hand select the guests. I invite. There's no like application process or anything. So I want to tell people how I met you. And by the way, I wanted to mention that you are officially the first female guest.
Well,
I,
thank you.
I
Glad to have that honor.
Yes, I have done about 6 or 7 shows. They've all been men, amazing conversations, but you are the first woman. And I think that the universe arranged it that way because of your unique background and the work you do. And we're going to get into that. So the way that I met you, Katie, is that I actually had a girlfriend who was going through a really like a really difficult divorce. And I there was a lot of injustice going on that I didn't know where to turn. And of course, there was, the first person actually, this is kind of instructive. I knew Charlie from Charlie Hofheimer, who's the founder of Hofheimer Family Law. I knew him from years back with Ben Glass and Great Legal Marketing. And I remembered that his law firm catered only to women. And so niching, right? This is just brilliant. And so I said, let me reach out to Charlie. Maybe he can just point me into something because I didn't know how to help my friend who was about to sign away her rights on this really bad settlement agreement. And I reached out, I went through like your chat box, and somehow I got routed to you. You responded to me directly. And I was struck by number one, how compassionate you are, how like helpful and informative you were, and how generous you were with the help you gave me. All the other law firms, and maybe I reached out to 2 or 3, were like, sure, schedule an appointment, $500 consultation fee. Fine, let's do that. I'm not saying don't do that, but you were just different. And that stood out with me. And so then, lo and behold, a few months later, we connect on Facebook or social, and you're doing this amazing marketing, which I want to talk about. But I also want to talk about the content of the marketing because you're tapping into this idea, this other idea that I feel very strongly about. I call it the bittersweet, or I've heard it called the bittersweet victory of the independent woman. And you talk a lot about the what's going on in women's heads with divorce, right? You're not just talking about like, here's the divorce process, here's the legal terms. Well, you're not just talking about that. You're getting into their minds and their emotions. And so anyway, I want us to kind of flow into the marketing, but also this sort of male, female, this dynamic that you've sort of tapped into. And I've talked a lot. I want to start with some blitz questions. How's that?
Yeah, sure. Happy to answer them.
All right. Okay. So Katie, let's just start with, this is not a blitz question. tell us a little bit about your journey to where you are now.
Well, I feel like like so many other people, it's life experiences and it's luck and everything kind of all rolled into one. But I experienced two kind of abusive relationships that put me on this path. The first one, I was a child, a member of my extended family, and I just can't tell you the devastation that it wrought on my entire extended family unit, and it's still continuing to this day. And then I was in an abusive relationship with a boyfriend of mine in law school, and at the same time that I was applying for jobs, and I saw this firm and just happened to apply and had an interview with Charlie Hoffheimer, who founded the firm. And I mean, I guess he saw something in me. He always says that the most important thing is to hire for personality. He's like, skills don't matter that much. You can train for the skills, but hire for the personality, hire for the people that you want to work with. And I mean, I don't know exactly what I said. I told him some story. My family owns my dad owns this sporting goods store here in the town where I'm from. And I said some story, something about worms. My granddad had, like had to dig up his own worms, and I worked in the store selling the worms for the fishing tackle side. And just kind of like made a comparison to how hard I was going to work, and understanding the family owned business side of things. And before I knew it, he was like, I don't have any jobs to offer you, but I'm going to give you one. And I showed up on my first day and nobody knew I was coming except for him. So super awkward, but somehow it just kind of turned into this partnership. I sort of view myself as like almost his protege. I don't know if he would use that word, but he gave me so much insight into protective mom's work and all of the stuff, all of the kind of injustices that are wrought on women in the family court system and beyond. And it was truly inspiring, and it resonated with my previous experiences with my family and with my now ex-boyfriend, thank goodness. But it just kind of, I don't know. I feel like these things are meant to be sometimes, and my experiences in my life led me here, and then and luck kind of carried me the rest of the way and brought Charlie into my life, and he gave me this job, which ultimately gave me a voice and a platform that I couldn't possibly be more grateful for.
Mm. I love that. And I knew Charlie, and he was an amazing person, and for sure, what a great opportunity. Now, were you an attorney? Were you like did you have your law license when you started working, or no?
I had taken the bar exam. I had graduated law school and I had taken the bar exam, and I started just a couple of days later. So I hadn't found out yet whether I had passed. I found out maybe 4 or 5 weeks later. It wasn't that long, but because I wasn't a lawyer yet, I couldn't do any of the legal work. So they had me in, they called it the library, but it was like it's like a closet. It was like had it the copy machine in there and some law books and stuff, but I didn't even have an office at first. And I went along with Charlie. He was doing by that time he was mostly retired from legal work and was doing a lot of the firm's marketing. He's a real just visionary, and he took me along with him. He brought me to Great Legal Marketing meetings and got me involved with a number of other marketing directors and people, and I mean really taught me. I don't have any formal training in marketing. I'm trained as a lawyer. So he brought me along and taught me all of those things and introduced me to, people who could teach me even more. And I did find out that I passed the bar, but by then I was already doing and loving the marketing so much that I've kind of got maybe like an 80-20 division, 80% marketing, 20% law. I still maintain an active law practice. I have, still have my license. I still do my continuing education, all of those things. I represent clients. But probably more often I'm talking about practicing family law and what it takes to run the business and trying to make things run as smoothly as possible, both for the sake of the people that work within the firm and also for the clients that we represent.
I love it. That's an amazing journey. So tell me, what has been your proudest accomplishment?
Well, I mean, I think probably recently my proudest accomplishment is that I launched my own social media channels. I've been doing social media for the firm for a long time, but felt like, there's a bit of a difference between the line that a business can take and a law firm can take and what I can say, by myself in isolation. And so I started Your Girlfriend Needs a Divorce. Originally, I had written and revised and kind of co-written a number of books for the firm. We have four different books, but I wanted to do something on my own. So I was working on this book manuscript at the time, and I wanted to create a platform where I could, kind of cultivate an audience and talk about family law the way I want to talk about family law. And obviously, it's all still women only. That's a huge part of my identity as a person and as a lawyer at this point. But launching those channels was I was so worried about it. I don't know what I thought was going to happen, but I was so worried about like taking this stand. I didn't want to get fired. I love the work that I do, right? Like I love what I do. I believe in the firm, and I've been there for 13 years now, and I've drank the Kool-Aid. I love it. I think it's such a great business. It's such a great business model. The work that we do is so impactful. But I also wanted to have, a voice in something that was a little bit my own. So launching the channels, and I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, talking about family law. Some of those platforms are a little more successful than others, but it's been really exciting to be able to develop my own voice in a way that is both part of and beyond the law firm, and just see what can happen, right? Like I don't know what's going to happen from putting my voice out there, but I don't want to not try.
Yeah. Well, a couple of questions. You said you were a little bit worried about it, and that's understandable. What were you worried about? Were you worried about criticism? You said maybe getting fired, or like, what were some of the, I
Well,
mean,
I mean,
obviously
I'm
the
probably
work
being
is,
dramatic. They were work has the firm has always been incredibly supportive of all of it. But there is sort of there's always a risk, right? When you're doing something on your own, especially like I'm in the social sense, I'm kind of untethered from a larger organization. So I was nervous about all the ways it could go wrong. Probably mostly I was worried about hate, receiving like being on the receiving end of hate online, because I know how prolific that can be. And I have gotten some, but it surprised me. I'm an empath, like to the like nth degree. So I thought it would be really difficult for me to hear those things, and that it would, weigh me down and would, impact my personal life, my life away from family law. But I'm surprised that it really hasn't, because I believe in the messaging. I believe it's so important, and being able to reach and help women is so much more important than someone saying something mean, whether they're saying something mean about what I personally believe about family law, what I've seen practice, or whether they're saying something mean about me personally. Because of course, as a woman showing up online, people say things, about how I look from time. I've got crazy eyes, or I've got a mustache, or I've got a zit. Do you know I've got a zit? And it's like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to tell you guys, but sometimes women get zits, right? Like it happens.
Mhm.
But I was afraid of that, and I've been really surprised and really kind of empowered to see how little impact it has on me.
So it was, and I'm glad to hear that. And it's a journey that anyone who, part of the basis of this podcast is that everyone has a message
Yeah.
that the world needs to hear. And that message is for certain people. It's not for everybody. And I feel so strongly about that, because if you don't believe that, you're going to give up. If you don't
Yeah.
believe that your message is for some people and not for others, and those others are, at best, they're just going to ignore you. But at worst, they're going to criticize you for your
Mhm.
message, or for really stupid stuff like you have crazy eyes. Why do you have a zit?
Yeah.
It's like, at least like respectfully criticize me.
Yeah, I know. But criticize my opinions, because there's way more to that than just the zit that happens to be on my face today.
Right,
But thank you.
right.
Thank you. I did notice.
Right. So um it's so important to remember that. And you went into that, even though, it took a level of bravery and just believing in yourself and having a team that supports you, that message is for certain people. And I will like just confirm that for you, because because of what you're talking about. So the idea that you created this, your girlfriend needs a divorce, is that somehow you're taking, and here's from my perspective why I think it's so brilliant. You're taking that direct edge off of a very volatile topic for women. And like, for example, this is funny. Years ago, one of my girlfriends was in a very abusive relationship. And, she was just crushed. Like she was zero self-worth left. And I reached out to an organization to get some information for her in terms of like how to get out of abusive relationship. But they were like booklets that they would give you free, right? And I called and I was like, yeah, I have a friend, her husband, and da 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 da. And within like 3 minutes, I'm like, this woman thinks it's me.
Yes.
Because most women are ashamed to talk about like how they're being treated, to talk about their struggles, whether in their marriage and their relationships, saying divorce, like there's shame and guilt associated with that. So the fact that you're like, hey, it's your girlfriend, it's not you. Like, was that intentional?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. That's like kind of the whole premise. I'm trying to sidestep into a conversation. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to. I mean, it's in a lot of cases, family law is literally life or death, right? These people, these women who are trapped in these abusive relationships might be afraid to engage with me directly. And I mean, that's how you and I reconnected, right? Is that you were reaching out for help for a friend. And sometimes it is a friend, sometimes it's us kind of in disguise. It doesn't really matter. The point is that I'm trying to enter the conversation indirectly and sort of camouflage the real victims from the women who are there, either just supporting other women, just generally, just the concept of supporting other women, or supporting another specific woman in their life that they've seen trapped in these kinds of relationships and helping to get them out of it. And one of the things that we had seen in the law firm was that it's hard on a social platform to get people to like and engage with you because you like the very nature of being social, you don't want your sister's third grade teacher's ex-boyfriend's aunt to know, and everyone to know that you're online looking for information related to divorce. And it's not just divorce for a lot of women. It touches on so many things because we're talking about, about motherhood. We're talking about finances. We're talking about investments and retirement. We're talking, so many things touch on divorce for women. So I wanted to camouflage the conversation and lower the barrier of entry so that whether it's for you or whether it's for someone else, you were able to, to engage with me, to follow the platform and ask the questions or, even just casually observe from the sidelines. Like, that's okay. I get it. I know that in a lot of cases, it is truly dangerous. So it was a very intentional move. And I'm glad. I mean, I've had a couple of people who act confused, but I feel like most of the time people get what I'm trying to do.
That's brilliant. I love it. Like lowering the barrier of entry. I work with a lot of attorneys and
Yeah.
like, for example, bankruptcy or these other really sensitive things where they can't really do marketing because they're like, we can't tell everybody that they're going through this, but here you are,
Mhm.
you crack that code. And hopefully there are other smart attorneys who can adapt that for their law firm. Um, actually, let me ask you this. What kind of feedback, if any, have you gotten? You already said that some people are really confused. That's okay. Let them be confused. But in
They're
general,
men. They're men. It's fine. Sort of like,
because men are very direct. Like, why would you
yeah.
like try to be
They're like,
indirect?
if she's a girlfriend, why does she need a divorce? I'm like, no, not your girlfriend, my girlfriend, like a girlfriend. Girls having girlfriends. But it's fine.
Oh,
It's fine. You don't get it. It's not for you. Just move on, Steve. It's fine.
oh, how funny they are not your market, but for them to
No.
think that they're like my girlfriend, how funny. But that's
Yeah, no,
okay.
I'm not talking about adultery here. I'm not talking about the actual girlfriend. I'm talking about women having girlfriends.
Yes, yes.
But
And that's
it's
part of
fine.
like because your market and your message is so targeted, that's totally it's gonna happen. But
Yeah.
I see. So what has been some of the feedback that you've gotten, the positive feedback that has maybe like surprised you or delighted you?
Mostly, I mean, the women I get so many private messages from women who are going through exactly what I'm describing. In a lot of cases, they're not necessarily writing comments publicly on the page, right? Which I suspected that that would be a barrier for a lot of people. And I would never want to encourage someone to do something that felt too unsafe or too vulnerable. Totally fine to direct message me. But I mean, they are so appreciative of the message and of hearing someone saying what they're experiencing. And I think that's a real disconnect with a lot of lawyers is that, they do go into like immediately what are the legal processes we can go through, what are the things we can file, what are the documents. And it's really for a lot of women, it's not about that. It's about being seen and having those lived experiences validated and feeling like they're not crazy, because this isn't something that women are talking about that loudly because they do feel the shame, they feel isolation, they feel scared, like truly fearful for their lives in a lot of cases. So it's not like this is something that they're out shouting from the rooftops, like they might talk about, a popular event or celebrity gossip or whatever, where you can kind of safely put your opinion out there. So I think it's mostly that it's validating to have a lived experience, put into words. And I try to do a lot of things like trying to bridge the gap between, lawyers and regular people and being able to use the words that lawyers use to describe your situation so that you can get the help that you need. In a lot of cases, there's a real vocabulary gap, just not even knowing how to describe what you're going through, especially if it's something like, like abuse and coercive control and child and mother sabotage. It's kind of unique and it's kind of niche. And so seeing like all of these, different events come together to form a coherent narrative is a hard thing to do, especially as a victim, right? Like it's not like you're coming into this with the most organized thinking you've ever had in your life. Like if you've lived under the shadow of abuse for a long period of time, then it's fragmented and healing is not linear. It's disrupted constantly. So the court has these expectations about how a victim will look and how a victim will act. And the way it really is for an actual woman who has lived through that, it's not necessarily congruent. So being able to piece together a narrative that makes sense, to talk about her experiences, to connect with someone who can help, is a big part of what I'm trying to do, just, to give them the language to express it. But it's really all the individual conversations that I've had with women have been so validating, and I really appreciate, every single one of them that has reached out. And I don't want to ever, become jaded to the point where I can't, connect with people on these experiences and help them through, even if they're not someone, obviously I'm only licensed to practice in Virginia, so I can't give advice in other states. I've even had people from other countries in the United Kingdom and Ireland reaching out to ask me about the law in their country, which, I don't always know, but I know the questions to ask and I know how to, put people on the right track and help them find the right lawyer and get the right results, because it's so incredibly important. And so many women out there are just willing to buy their freedom kind of at whatever cost and sign away everything. That's something, one of the things that I've gotten that has not delighted or excited me has been all the men that are like, that's not a thing. Like no one's doing that. No one's waiving things that they're entitled to. And yes, they are. They are. Women are doing this all the time. I can't tell you how many times I have had to counsel women to make sure that they ask for the spousal support that they're entitled to, or ask for the division of the retirement that they deserve under the law. It's there in black and white in the statute that they are entitled to it, but they're willing to walk away because they're scared, because they don't feel like they have the resources to mount a defense against their more powerful husband. And obviously men don't understand this, right? Because they already think it's theirs. They already think, I wouldn't do that, so she wouldn't do that. But I don't think that's true. I think there's a big difference between how men think about divorce and what they're entitled to, and how women, especially women who are victims of abuse or women who, like stay-at-home moms or otherwise lesser earning spouses, when there's a big difference between the earning potential, the income of each party, it's not the same. Men and women are not the same when it comes to divorce. And, being able to give that information is really powerful for me.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note that when you do put your message out there, like you have been, it comes from a place of, you feel strongly about it, you're passionate about it. It's kind of in your fabric because of your background, which tends to be, that message that's in us. It's created from our experiences, and you're putting it out there. And sometimes it can feel discouraging. I mean, I'm glad that you're getting so many private messages as it should. But even if, someone who feels like they have a message in them and they put themselves out there the way that, you have, and you're not getting the engagement, you're not getting the likes or the comments or maybe even not enough. But there are people that people are listening. And it's making a difference. And
Yeah.
there could be many reasons why maybe they're not reaching out. Like you said, there's shame, there's guilt, but they don't even have the words to put around what's going on in their
Hmm.
life. But now here, you've given them a framework, you've given them a structure to, to kind of see their experience in context. And I think that's just so important. And that's what I love. And that's what I love about what you do. So, keep on keeping on what you're doing.
Oh, I plan to. It's only been 6 months, so it's all still, or at least on my own personal channels. So it's all really new. I don't feel discouraged at all. I feel like I get a surprising amount of engagement so quickly. And, every so often something, really takes off. And so I try to do more content on that topic because obviously it's whether I'm making people angry or whether I'm, getting a lot of positive engagement. Either way, I think I'm probably furthering the message that's important for, my, kind of, my target audience to hear. So I just there's enough little like Easter eggs along the way to keep it going and keep it feeling, meaningful. But I mean, like anything else, it's not, you don't only do it for the success of it. You do it because, like you said, you believe in it. And I do feel like I have a message to share. And there's so much work to do on the advocacy side, so many changes to make. So it's yeah, you can't give so much weight to social media, right? It's just social media. It has its place. It's valuable in terms of creating an audience, but it's not necessarily the only thing. So you don't want to let something that's happening online become too big or overshadow a larger message or a greater purpose. And I do feel like my purpose is greater than it's the quickest and easiest way to reach a lot of people, but it's only social media. It's only a small part of a much larger plan. And I believe in it. I've been doing this for 13 years and I'm gonna see where it goes.
Yeah. And it's not just social media. I think when you go forward with a message that's embedded in you that you want to get out there, it
Yeah.
really doesn't matter what other people are saying about it. And it's you're sharing that message, and you might get diversity in responses, you might get no responses, whether it's on social media or whatever platform is in. But I know it's making a difference is what I'm saying. If it's something
Yeah.
that like you feel like passionate about, put it out there regardless of, obviously you make adjustments, you take in the data and say, okay, how can I fine tune it? How can I speak this way? So you make it better, but you don't stop doing what you're doing, because of that. And I'm not suggesting that you are. I'm just saying I think that
Right.
people, my
Message
listeners,
to other people.
yeah, my listeners, they're like, oh, I don't know. No one's really responding. Maybe what I'm talking about is kind of dumb. Maybe like it's not that important. You know what? If it's important to you, you just barrel forward with it is what I'm saying.
I
So
think there's nothing like that experience of like reading a description that somebody else wrote and you're like, do they live in my brain? Like, did they take that out and put that like in words on the screen? Like, I can't believe somebody else is saying this exact thing that I've been thinking, but I thought it was only me. And whether it comes from in so many different forms, but being able to recognize yourself in some other space is an incredible feeling. And I think that can come across a million different industries and hobbies and interests. And kind of no matter what you're talking about, if it resonates with you, I can almost guarantee you there is an audience out there that wants to hear this too, and that they will, once they find you, it's always a question of finding your target audience in the midst of all the noise. But then they're also going to be just raving fans because you gave voice, you created a platform for something that, they didn't know existed.
yep, that's exactly right. And I think people are really craving true connection, in
Mhm.
this sort of where we are in this technology world, society, culture, and the flow back to really authentic connection of not what's facade, but what really
Yeah.
people are thinking about is what you're touching on, and that's where it is. Whether you're doing marketing, whether you're just your life purpose, whether your work, or
Yeah.
somehow all blended together.
Yeah, it's all about authenticity and relatability. And I try very, very hard to just present myself as I am. I'm not trying to jazz it up. I'm not trying to, look like something that I'm not. I'm always like reading and rereading and being like, how is that going to be received? How are people going, I just want to, I want to be as authentic as possible. I want to be as, relatable and as human as I possibly can be. And, it's easy. It's in some ways it's easy. Like I'm a woman, I'm a mother of young kids. So talking to other women, other mothers about parenting and raising their kids. And, some of that comes naturally just because in terms of like, where we are in our lives, it's similar. But yeah, there's also a fair amount that I've, learned from other people and from other experiences. I learned so much when I first started like working on writing a book. I was thinking more like, what kind of institutional knowledge do I have as a lawyer that I can share with people that they might not already know? What are the sources that we use? Who are the people we cite? Who are the experts we go to on this variety of topics? And how do I put all of that into a digestible format that just regular people can pick up and use? But since I launched my own socials, I've been really looking at what other women are saying. There's so many women out there just sharing their experiences about being in family court and navigating these high conflict divorce and custody battles. I feel like lawyers have sort of taken me as far as they can go at this point, but there is so much to learn from the real experiences of other people that have gone through these things, and being able to, take their experiences and work that into my content and talk about, how all of these different things work together and the impact they can have on a divorce or custody case. Like that's where I think the real magic happens, kind of the intersection between, these real people's lives and the law and policy, and being able to kind of make change and bringing those things together and talking about it. And I mean, it's infinitely relatable because so many people are ending, their marriages are ending in divorce or going through these kind of custody cases. And they need guidance, they need help, they need to know where to turn, and they need to have words to describe what they're going through. And, I think I can help with that. I think I can talk a lot about that.
So speaking of the content, I'm going to
Yeah.
shift a little bit. Um, there's a topic that I feel very strongly about. And in fact, as of today's recording, I'm going to the Great Legal Marketing Summit next week, and I'm going to be hosting a panel on women in entrepreneurship and leadership. And there's, other women on the panel who are entrepreneurial, who've, leaders, and we're all going to talk about our own perspective on what it means to be strong, independent, accomplished woman who's in roles of leadership, who maybe has their own business. You don't have to have your own business, but you can be in a leadership role. And how that has kind of impacted us in the last, I don't know, whenever the feminist movement started, the last, 100 years, maybe less, maybe more, maybe less than 100. And so it's something that I've really been looking into the past few years. And so, and I mentioned before, I call it the bittersweet victory of the independent woman. Tell me a little bit. So before I talk about that on sort of what I've been, tell me a little bit what your thoughts are about that.
I love talking about the feminist movement. And I love too how much has really changed, right? Like things are so different from how they were even in like, I mean, I think it probably it spans more than 100 years ultimately. But most of us are looking at kind of changes that have happened since the 1950s and kind of since then. And being able to see, for divorce, from my perspective, is not just about the ability to end a marriage, right? It's about the ability to believe that you can survive after divorce. And that's what so many previous generations were really lacking, was not the ability to get the divorce. People got divorced, have gotten divorced for a long time, but being able to survive and even thrive after a divorce is something that is a relatively new concept. So what I love about our kind of era here is that we have the ability to, get an education and to get a job and to earn. I mean, there's still a wage gap. There's still things that need to change, but there's a lot of positive change that has happened for women since the 1950s. I mean, just the ability to get credit cards, the ability to get mortgages, the ability to own businesses, to, have accounts in, our own name, to earn our own retirement. All of these things give us more economic power than we've ever had before. And that really it's a catalyst for a lot of these things. And it means that women can see these futures that are beyond being a wife and being a mother. And, as a wife and a mother, they're important roles to me. They're hats that I wear every day they're deeply important, intrinsically important to who I am as a person. But I'm also more than that. And I can envision so much more than that. And maybe it's a little bit delusional. I can handle that. That's fine if I am. But being able to go out and make these things happen, I think that's what it all means to me. What I think is really moving a lot of women forward in, whether they choose to get married and end their marriage, whether they choose to never marry and stay single. I mean, I keep hearing all these statistics about how many more women, something 40% of women are projected to be single by 2030, which is crazy. But the single women and married men are typically the happiest demographic. And I think that's really telling about how we structure our marriages and our families, and women are carrying so much weight of the domestic labor and the unpaid caregiving labor. And we're able to say, what, like, if this is what it's going to be like I want out. I want a partner, not a project. And if you can't be a partner to me, then I can find my village somewhere else, whether it be from my family or friends. You don't need a man to even have a baby anymore. So there's so many things, so many options that we have that haven't been available to women in previous generations. And then being able to see, where we've come from, where I am, and then to extrapolate from that where I hope we'll be when it's my daughter's turn to decide whether to marry herself and whether she chooses to have a family, what kind of job she chooses to work in. I think there's a lot of things that can change. We need to close the wage gap. We need paid maternity and paternity leave. We need subsidized childcare. There's so many things that we could do that would make life easier. So many places we can go from here, but also just looking down on where we are now from where we've come. There's so much to be grateful for too. So it's possibilities that women are able to see now, and I love that for me, for all of us, and for our little girls that we're raising now too. I have a daughter and she's almost 5, and I'm excited to see what the future will bring for her.
So I appreciate you saying that. And let me present this idea to you. You may not agree, but I want to know your thoughts on it. Um, I called it the bittersweet victory because at least what I'm observing is that in all this amazing advancements that women have made, these opportunities, these ways that they can really feel fulfilled, whether it is they want to stay at home, raise children, or they want to be in the workforce, whether they want to be single, they want to be married. So now there's options, there's choices that we can make. What are you, and I've seen you talk about this in a way where women, you call it the mental load, where they're carrying the mental load, they're doing everything outside the home, they're doing everything inside the home because they're strong, they can do it, they're able. But should they do
No.
it all?
No.
Right. And let me add this, and I want to hear your thoughts about it. And when we show up in a way that we're strong, we're independent, we can do whatever we want to do, what is that doing to the men in our life that we need them to show up? And do we have a responsibility towards those men too, if you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So let me know what your thoughts are on that.
I do think we have a responsibility, and it's part of an ongoing conversation. I think that the way we have raised and socialized men isn't necessarily the best to create, real equitable partners. So a lot of men have a lot of growing and maturing to do in order to be able to meet the demands of these, confident women who can do it all. And, in my own relationship, I've been married now for 11 years, and my husband is great. He's a little tired of hearing about the mental load, but he is willing to listen, and he's willing to take on more. And we have evolved past the, make me a list. that infuriates so many women. I'm like, yo, you have eyes. Look around, see what needs to be done. Take some initiative, And I love him, right? Like we've made a real commitment to each other. We have two children, and I want my own marriage to work. And I think the only way for it to work is to be transparent and to continue muddling through difficult conversations. And I can carry it all. I do carry a lot of it, but I shouldn't have to do it all by myself. And I think that a lot of women are drowning under all of the responsibilities and all of the, just the mental checklist of things you have to go through to figure out how to make it through your day and to make sure everybody has what they need, where they need it. And sometimes that starts days in advance, just from knowing that, your son has to wear a blue shirt to school on Friday and you're on Wednesday, like, well, I need to get this through the wash because we need this for Friday. We've got baseball game tonight and I'm bringing snacks. So I have to have all that prepared. It's so, and I needed to buy the stuff at the grocery store on Saturday when I went, not today, because today I have to work. It's all of those things. But I mean, I don't think it's our responsibility to have these conversations, but I think that just in the spirit of being transparent and of being cooperative and working together with partners that we've chosen, that we've had children with, that we love, that we want to elevate to the same kind of standard that we're able to operate at, it is beneficial to be able to have these conversations. We shouldn't have to, but there's a lot of things that women have done throughout history that we shouldn't have had to do, a lot of burdens that we shouldn't have had to carry. Equality should have been assumed from the beginning, but it wasn't. So now we're having to dismantle all these oppressive systems and create better, more beneficial ones. And I think if we, cut them all adrift, we divorce them all, then, they won't necessarily learn. And we aren't necessarily creating a better environment for our children and, modeling what we want for our daughters. So, I mean, I hope that I'm showing my daughter to advocate for herself and showing my husband how to show up in a relationship. And I hope I also have enough humility to recognize when because sometimes, not often am I wrong, but sometimes I do have like a little bit of I can be rigid, like it has to happen this way. And it maybe doesn't always have to happen exactly that way. So having just enough flexibility that I can see another way, that I can, work with the way, my husband's brain works, which is different than how mine works, and kind of find a way forward. Maybe not an obligation, but I think that it's better if we can. And you can't always, not all of these men are capable of the kind of growth or change, and being able to recognize the ones who can make lasting, valuable change and the ones who are just stuck and they're going to be what they are. Um, we have to kind of survival of the fittest, right? There's a period of evolution here, and the ones who are making good partners, who are good family men, who are contributing back, are the ones who are going to have these relationships and build these families. And hopefully we'll be able to raise our children to, select the same kind of partners so that we can, cull out the ones from the herd that aren't able to meet the demands of the modern family, which is, it's a lot, it's oppressive, but shared by two people, it's not quite so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me tell you how I've sort of wrapped my head around this whole dynamic, like the last 100 years or so, and how it's the shift that's happened in the male-female dynamic and women's roles and men's roles. And let me get your thoughts on it. And then we'll wrap it up. I know we can talk for like another hour, but
I can go on forever. Just
same.
I won't.
Same. So here's what I've understood in that, and I agree that men do need to, they need to grow and they need to learn to, how to show up in a relationship. I think that women can't show them how. I think that women can create the space for these men to show up. And how do you create that space is a whole nother podcast. But it has to do, from what I've discovered, the energy that you bring. It has to do with, are you showing up in that, let me lead, or are you showing up in a, you lead? And what does that mean for you? But the men, there's like so much out there now for men to say, well, what does it really mean to be a partner relationship where I can support. If I have a confident, ambitious, independent woman that I want, how do I live with her? How do I support her? How do I make her feel loved, supported, cared for, provided for, and but also free to be who she is? And there's a lot out there for them. I don't think that the women can be the ones to show them that, because somehow it just goes against it. The other thing that I've really, there's an energy, and I call it, there's an energy that we bring. And so, we typically hear it, and you may have heard of it, of the feminine, masculine energy. I've heard of it as the light and dark energy. There's different names for it, alpha and omega energy, but and it's got nothing to do with your man or woman. But it's really showing up as I'm gonna be in sort of receive mode and allow you to be who you are and lead, or I'm gonna show up and be sort of that badass, I'm gonna get things done mode, and learning how to operate in it, either in harmony or in polarity. So some ideas that I just kind of threw out there. Let me know what your thoughts are on those.
My husband always says that I set the tone for our family, which is a lot of pressure, right? He's like, when you come in and you're in a bad mood, it impacts there. And it's true, but oh my gosh, it's so oppressive to think that like I have to be like, tour guide Barbie all the time, where I'm just, trying to keep everybody on the right path. But I do think it's true, and I think it's important to approach relationships and conversations in a way that allows for feedback. And you can't be but so, powerful and domineering. You have to allow room for other voices. And I think that's one thing. I mean, I identify as a millennial. That's when I was born. And I think one thing that we're doing that is really good, like the gentle parenting and apologizing and being able to have these tough conversations, to recognize toxicity and even cut it out, even when it's family members or friends or people who have been in our lives a long time but are no longer adding that value. But being able to create and enforce boundaries is important, but we have to be able to have it's a big conversation that involves all sorts of different moving pieces. And I love that we're able to have these conversations, that we're talking about emotions, that we are aware of our mental health in ways that previous generations haven't been. So I think my husband's right. I set the tone, but it's bigger than that too. And, it's part of a much larger conversation that, allows everybody to hopefully to show up authentically and to, express vulnerability and to ask for help and to apologize. And, I think having a family and being part of even at work, being part of a productive team, being, someone that other people look at as, adding value to an organization. I say this to like my mom and my sister all the time. Like, I want to use my power for good. I have power, I have a voice, and whatever I'm doing, I really want to make sure that I examine myself, that I go through all my motivations for doing what I'm doing. And I can change course if I feel like I'm not on the right track. But if I'm doing something, if I'm acting, then I want it to be because I believe that what I'm doing is right. It's for the right reasons. I'm not, it's not about revenge. It's not about some kind of other like, bad, but very human, end goal. I always want to use my power, use my voice, use my platform for good, in my home and in my professional life and, everywhere in between. So I am always trying to reframe everything and analyze everything from that perspective, no matter what choice that I make. And it's been particularly relevant for me recently, personally. I took a pro bono case for a family member that has just cost untold, just insane amount of just drama in my family. And I've had to, I've asked myself so many, like, why am I doing this? Why is this important to me? And ultimately, I feel like the only answer I've been able to come up with is because the alternative would have been to leave a family member completely unprotected. And I had a platform as a lawyer, I have education, and I have opportunities that aren't available to everyone. And if I hadn't stepped in, then I would have left this person completely unprotected and completely victimized, in large part by other members of my family. And I couldn't live with that. And it was a hard choice then, and there have been hard consequences to live with every single day since then. But I keep coming back to, like, I feel like I did the right thing for the right reasons. I feel like I protected someone who was vulnerable. And if I'm not doing that, then I might be a fraud, right? Like, does anything else that I'm saying matter if when someone who is related to me needs me, I, I mean, even someone who isn't, but someone desperately needs me, needs the skills, the unique set of skills that I have honed, that I have cultivated over the years. How can I say no, or this would be too hard for me personally. This makes my life too complicated, right? Like, that's not the right thing, even though it would have been the easy thing, even though it would have created the sense of dishonest harmony that everybody seems to want around me. Um, but I still come back to, I mean, not only did I not create the situation because I had nothing to do with it, it existed and I just came in to help with it. But I am trying to use my power for good. And I think that carries me forward, and I hope will carry me forward through the rest of my career, even when I'm faced with really difficult choices, whether, again, whether we're talking about within my own family, which this is kind of intersecting between my professional life and my personal life, which is hard. But either way, no matter where I am, I'm just trying to focus on using my energy and my platform for things that are good for the right reasons. And I hope that will carry me through.
Yeah, and what you said is exactly right, that there are times where we come to a decision point where we can choose to act according to who we know we are, or take an easier path. And I think that was a conversation I had with a previous guest where he had to decide, am I the type of person who does this regardless of how difficult it may be, or am I the type of person who does that? And I think the conversation, you said something else, that this is part of a bigger conversation. This is a many voices. And I think that's so important. And that's, again, why this panel that I'm doing, when it was offered to me, the topic was offered immediately. I knew that I couldn't be the only one speaking on it,
Right.
that other women, everybody's experience, not just women, but, I'm a woman, so I can talk about it, but we all have a unique experience
Yeah.
that deserves to be heard and given a framework and form and words to. And and there's different, and we may have different thoughts and ideas about it, and that's okay. Like, we're not going to shame each other or guilt each other to think the way we do.
Yeah.
But the fact that what you're doing, your part of it, is that you're giving the words to this slice up for women, which I think is something that is so important. And so I just really acknowledge you for what you're doing, for
Thank
the
you.
bravery it takes to put yourself out there every day and to put the extra time, because it's who you are, even though you could be out spending time with your kids, you could be out, in your nature or walking your dogs. But no, you're putting the time to respond to those emails, to those DMs, to take the pro bono case, because that's the message that's in you. And that's what's making a difference for people and the people who are in that people. So, really just acknowledge you for that. Thank you for what you're doing, for the message that you're putting out there. And I look forward to continuing to talk to you about it, because I know as you get feedback and as you talk to people and get in, you're gonna, you're gonna, kind of just see, like, refine your message,
Yeah,
right?
evolve and change, and
Evolve
yeah.
it and change. And so this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much, Katie. I really recommend that. I think you said your socials are the best way to get in hold of you. Is that right?
Yeah, me independently, yes. At Your Girlfriend Needs a Divorce. Probably, I mean, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube,
Hey,
TikTok, LinkedIn. I'm all over the place.
all
But
of it.
I'm also on the Hoffheimer Family Law page. It doesn't necessarily reach me directly because I'm one of a much larger firm. but it's also a great place and a great firm. I highly recommend it for anyone who's going through a divorce in Virginia. As a woman, we're the only firm in Virginia that represents women exclusively. So it's kind of a unique niche and one that, a place in the market that we're really proud to occupy.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for that. And I really recommend listeners to just stay connected.
Yeah.
So, thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. Again, my name is Kia Arian, reminding you once again that your skills and your talents have been given to you for a reason. There are people who stand to benefit from what you offer. There are others who you are not called to help. Focus on the former group. They're waiting for you.